Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome back. Another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. Nate Diaz and Masvidal have another fight. That was just this past weekend. It wasn't in a cage, though. It was in a boxing room. We're going to kind of get into that. Darren Till makes headlines. I don't think for all the right reasons, but when you're a fighter, I guess who cares what the reasons? If you're fighting and you make headlines, good for you. Maycee Barber out of her fight. Biggest opportunity of her career against Thug Rose this weekend. Cortez jumps in. Dive into that a little bit. And I got a question about momentum that we are going to get into. I think it's going to be a fun little debate. But to help me break it all down, John Morgan. Follow him on X, John Morgan _MMA. What up, pal?
I'm hot, bro. It's absolutely steaming out here in Las Vegas. You see this? We set an all-time record in Las Vegas yesterday. 120 degrees, bro. It's warm out here, man. I've been living in the desert for 16 years, but this summer is something crazy, man. So I'm hot right now. That's what's going on.
Yeah, we are in a crazy heat wave out here in Tennessee as well, and our humidity is at like 65%. It's crazy. So our heat index is getting up to around 110. 112, but it's gnarly. Even at like 8 a.m., it's just like
brutal.
But anyways, Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal boxing match this past weekend. Before we get into the fight, I have to say the build-up to this fight was so damn fun for all the wrong reasons. Would you agree with me there?
Yeah, right. I mean, you got like late press conferences and people walking off stage and not being like, you know, and Nate Diaz, let's be honest, isn't always interested in doing media and interviews and hyping a fight. You know what I mean? But he hypes the fight by not hyping the fight. You know what I mean? It's
in all this.
It's one of a kind.
Like, I don't want to do this. He's knowing exactly what he's doing to hype the fight.
100%. It's amazing. It's one of a kind, man. It's like he's carved out a brand just for that, of being like, I'm the dude that's too cool for any of this. I ain't even got time for it. But then yet everybody shows up to watch him fight. I mean, you know, if Nate Diaz is fighting, you want to watch him fight. And I admitted coming into this fight that, like, man, I don't know, not an MMA fight. I will admit, until it was fight night, my excitement level for this fight wasn't the same because it was a boxing match. You know what I mean? And it's the limited rules between these two guys. Not that I have anything against the sport of boxing, but we know that they're mixed martial artists. They're not the highest level boxers. So I wasn't as hyped about it. But then when Saturday rolled around, I knew I had to tune in and watch it. Obviously, I want to watch these guys compete. And they did put on a show. So the lead up to it was fun. The execution of it was fun. It ended up being, I think, a lot more fun than I thought it would be.
All right. Yes. Okay. Agree. But I do want to go back to the lead up because I don't want to be here. I don't want to do it yet. I'm going to fly everywhere to do it.
Right.
I'm going to show up to do it only to make a spectacle of me not doing it, which is strategically planned, in my opinion. I don't think he's up there on a whim just saying, like, I ain't doing it now. I don't want to be here. Like, I personally, you know, you got to give, and we've said this about Nate Diaz in the past, and we can date it all the way back to getting the original Conor McGregor fight. This dude is sharp.
Oh,
He
yeah.
ain't no dummy, right? He may come off that way, but he's not. I believe it's strategic. And I think all those things are strategic. I mean, reports are he made $500,000 for this fight.
And I'm sure he made more than that, to be honest with you. That was just what was reported to the California State Athletic Commission. I'm sure there were some other contracts elsewhere that he got even more for that, because that's the type of price tag that he commands right now. But you're so right about it, man. I think Nate understands that maybe, like, and his brother as well deserves credit. I mean, the whole scrap pack, those guys understand the fight game. But I think he knows sometimes that less is more, right? You know what I mean? You don't necessarily need to hear him talk a whole lot and give a whole bunch of interviews and say a bunch of things. It's just the way he approaches it. And by the way, when you're making somebody else, you know, kind of quote unquote carry the weight of the promotion for the fight, you're making them do more work than you are. And maybe it's a little bit of mind games as well. You're like, man, is this dude even going to show up for the fight? Like, I don't even know if he's going to be there. So yeah, I believe it is all 100% calculated, and it works, man. I mean, the fandom, the fan base that Nate Diaz had is some of the most loyal in the game, man. They show up to watch him compete. That's for sure.
And his crew chasing down that YouTube influencer. Like, I'm like, you know, I got to admit, I'm like, catch him, catch him,
man. We could go down. We could spend a whole show talking about that. I hate that kind of stuff. You know, when you get knocked out, like, come on, man, show a little bit of respect. So yeah, I love the fact, that hey, you want to say that stuff? Cool, man. Guess what? There's going to be repercussions for it. We're coming after you, so don't show your face in public again.
And then him running, screaming was hysterical. It was hysterical.
Amazing. It was amazing.
All right, let's get into the fight. All right, I got to admit, I didn't pony up to watch it. I'm watching it through X. And again, I didn't have the expectations, and maybe just because I looked at it, these guys were like going to get a check.
Yeah.
From I'm watching clips on X in real time, which is the great thing about X. You can kind of do that. It looked like a lot of fun. It looked like they both wanted to win, and I think it exceeded expectations.
I agree. I like I said, I kind of came in with the same hesitancy, right? Like, it's not a mixed martial arts contest. There, what are the real stakes here? Because that's what we talk about, right? Like, what are the implications? Not only the fight itself, but what does it mean for careers moving forward and title opportunities and things like this? None of that existed here, right? And it's boxing, which, again, nothing against the sport of boxing, but we know that these two guys aren't the highest level of boxers because they've been busy training wrestling, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, everything else that you have to train, rather than just really fine-tuning those two weapons. So I wasn't necessarily super hyped, but I did watch it. I was like, man, I can't, these two guys are some of the greatest ever. I'm not going to, not watch them compete. And it does. I think you hit the nail on the head, man. It was a lot. I walked away thinking it was a lot more fun than I expected to be. I was impressed with Jorge Masvidal. His boxing did look clean. He'd been really focused on it, working on it. And he was the man that was landing the bigger shots. I thought the bigger moments came from Jorge Masvidal. But Nate Diaz did what I think you would expect Nate Diaz to do, right? It's that volume punching that he's so known for, right? Just, he's not going to get tired. He's not going to back down. He's just going to keep it in your face. And it may not be as consequential of blows in there, but, he's keeping the volume high. So it was interesting. I don't score as many boxing matches as I do mixed martial arts, right? Because MMA, we're doing that every single weekend. And I tune in to watch the big boxing matches. But most of the time, I'm catching highlights or replays like you because my life is so taken with MMA. I wasn't sure, man. I wasn't sure. Some of the cards were a little bit wider than I thought in the decision for Nate Diaz. I thought you could make some case for Jorge Masvidal in a lot of the rounds because he was landing those more meaningful blows. But again, I will not consider myself a scoring expert in boxing the way I would consider myself that in mixed martial arts. I think it was volume against the power, but I think if Masvidal had been just a little bit busier and pulled the trigger a little bit more often, that would have swayed things in his favor with the judges.
Answer me this question. And this always seems to fascinate me. And I don't want to disrespect boxing. It's not what my intent is here. My intent is, why are these MMA guys engaging in all this boxing now? Is it simply the purses are higher or the perceived purses are higher? Or is it from the aspect of it's not as hard, so I can do it?
Yeah, 100%, man. I know that sounds rude to say, but it's not as hard. You know what I mean? Especially, like, I've talked to a lot of the guys that have transitioned over to BKFC, even bare knuckle boxing, right? Which is, like, you would think a little bit more violent and does cause a little bit more damage in terms like lacerations and stuff like that. But Ben Rothwell, a legend of the game, I've asked him about it several times since he's transitioned over. He says, man, I could do this for so much longer because the preparation is way easier. All the injuries and stuff happen in the grappling rounds. I mean, 99% of the injuries and the wear down and then the wear on the knees and all those things, it happens in all the grappling rounds. When you don't have to train that, Mike Perry, I've talked to him about it. And teaser, I'll be talking to Mike Perry later this week for Grind City Media as well. So we look forward to that one. Always looking forward to platinum Mike Perry. Ready. Can't wait for that. But, he said the same thing. Like, look, man, I mean, in this, we got two weapons. All I got to do is look for the left and the right. That's all I got to work on, So, look, I think it's a combination of both. Nice paychecks, but nice paychecks where you feel like you're putting your body through less damage, both in the preparation for it as well as, the actual fight itself. So I do think it's a combination of both those things. And again, no disrespect to boxing, because when you watch those guys compete at the highest level, man, it is a beautiful, beautiful art. But yeah, I think it's less taxing on the body than MMA is.
So before I want to talk about Nate Diaz still, but one other really note from this card is Chris Avila. He beats Anthony Pettis.
Yeah.
On this, and Chris Avila, I think he's a 6-0 boxer now. didn't have much success in MMA. I think he most notably known for fighting Artem when the whole Connor's boy at the time, Artem. And he lost to Artem. But that's a big win for him against Anthony Pettis. Now let's rewind. Anthony Pettis was 1-0 in boxing. Yeah, 1-0. It's not a big win for a guy who was, 6-0 boxer. It is when Anthony Pettis is the name he is, and he beat Roy Jones. Yeah, Roy Jones was 55. Like, get it. He's still Roy freaking Jones Jr., and we said that on this podcast before.
Yeah. It was a surprising result, to be honest with you. It was not the prettiest fight. Anthony Pettis, I'm not sure what it was. I'm not sure if it was the higher weight class or what was it. He was another one that I didn't think was pulling the trigger quite enough, right? Just wasn't, really forcing the issue and doing what I think he's capable of. But I don't, in saying that, always I'm a little hesitant to say like you're critical of somebody that loses because it sounds like you're taking away from a guy that won, right? But Chris did what he had to do to get the win, and as you said, was kind of mid-tier, I guess, as a mixed martial artist, kind of a journeyman, so to speak, but is putting together a nice little record as a boxer. So this was a big result, and I think it's going to earn him, another big paycheck, another big opportunity. This was a big result for him.
Man, you want to talk about somebody who's definitely profited off of being a best friend of Nate Diaz? Look no further.
He has gotten some opportunities. I know he's super appreciative. It's always funny the way he talks like him. They kind of carry themselves the same way. It's funny, but that's what happens when you hang around your friends, right? You kind of pick up on each other's tendencies. But yeah, that man is gotten some opportunities and taking advantage of it.
Yeah. So after the fight, as many headlines, in my opinion, as the fight is Nate Diaz, what he says he wants to do. He only wants to be known as the best in the world. Which is funny from a guy who half the time you don't think gives a shit about anything, right? But then he comes out and says he wants to go back to the UFC and he wants to fight Leon Edwards. So that poses a couple interesting questions. One, could he walk back into the UFC? Let's hypothetically say Leon Edwards beats
Bilal
Muhammad, right?
Remember the name, man. Come on.
I know. He beats Bilal Muhammad later this month. Is Nate Diaz a big enough name? Is it legit enough? And has he curried enough favor with the UFC to jump back into a title match? And based off their first match, where he got owned by Leon Edwards for four and a half rounds, and then has Leon Edwards on skate in all sorts of damage, and in my opinion, could have finished the fight if he wasn't doing the Nate Diaz, taunting thing. I think he could have finished that fight. Do I think it would sell? Hell yeah. I think it would sell big, especially if they play the clips of that last minute of the previous fight. But is it legitimate enough that the UFC could honestly do it? That's the ultimate question I have.
I think you'd have to get some play in from Leon Edwards wanting that fight, which I think he would, right? Because, I mean, he dominated the fight the first time around, and he knows that Nate Diaz is a draw. So, I think if you get Leon Edwards, because Nate Diaz, man, again, we say his fans, they're loyal. They want to watch him fight. And I do believe that he's one of those guys that it doesn't matter, right? Like Conor McGregor. Like, could Conor McGregor get a title shot at 185 based off a win at 170 over Michael Chandler? Sure he could, because he's Conor McGregor and you would find some way. But I think you'd need some play in from Leon Edwards. Like, if you got Leon afterwards saying, you know what, man, this Nate Diaz keeps calling me out. I'm sick of that. I gave him one little moment of a fight I dominated for 25 minutes, and still I got to hear him yap. And still I got to hear his fans yap. I want to run it back and show him that he's not even going to get that one moment on me. He's not even going to get that one little highlight that he's living off of for the rest of his life. I'm going to show him that I'm the better fighter. And you get him selling that type of thing, you could make the fight. If Leon doesn't want it and is not buying in, it's going to be hard to sell, right? Because exactly what you said, like, people are going to say, well, come on, man. How does he deserve this? And you're going to have a lot of angry welterweights in the division. They're saying, whoa, what about me? I'm sitting out here trying to get my shot. But if Leon wants it, I'm sure the UFC would want to do it, man, because the money would be there. It would sell fights. Nate Diaz sells fights, man. So it's a stretch, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
It's a stretch, but like if there's one fighter who could pull that off, I think it is Nate Diaz, which is crazy to a guy who, from an MMA record perspective, it's not that great either. I mean, it's good. He's fighting all the names of the division, all the names in the UFC. But in reality, if you look at his record, it's not that great. But what he is a beloved figure. Once him and his brother were the biggest villains in the world. And now he's just universally beloved. So I think it can happen, albeit not warranted, but it can happen.
That's it. I mean, look, what is this business about, right? It is about entertainment. This is not a typical sport where you play a season, you line up the playoff brackets, you play them out, you see who takes home the title. That's not what this is. It's about entertainment. It's about pay-per-view sales. So, look, I mean, it's a stretch. It is definitely a stretch. It's not necessarily warranted, but I'm telling you, the more I think about it, I just keep, man, if Leon Edwards was just like, man, and look, you could sell because, the highlights, you'll show all that. You think about the pre-fight build-up, all the sales. You'd be like, look at this moment. As you said, because I felt the same way. I'm like, I think he could go finish him right now if he wouldn't keep playing to the crowd. I think he had a chance to win that fight. So you would show that highlight over and over. You could put this thing together. I don't know if it's going to happen, but you could put this thing together. We still got to see where Conor McGregor's at, too. We know that trilogy has to happen at some point, too, right? I mean, they got to do a third fight at some point. That's got to be in there somewhere, too. So we'll see. I'm excited to have him back, though, man. I had a lot more fun watching this than I thought I was. I would say I almost felt guilty of how little excitement I felt coming into it, given who these guys are and what they mean to the sport of MMA. But I don't know, because it was being contested under boxing rules, it just didn't grab me the same way. Right. But it ended up being a lot of fun, and I look forward to both these guys, competing again in the UFC at some point in the future.
So another MMA name, Darren Till, tried his hand at boxing this weekend. He's a 1-0 boxer now. Second round TKO, which I don't really understand the TKO victory there. But let's set the stage. He rabbit punches a guy in the back of the head. Doesn't look like much. Muhammad Mute, I believe I'm saying his name correctly, basically says he cannot continue due to that shot. Then all melee and hell breaks loose. They start fighting. Darren Till gets taken down by a single leg in a post-boxing match fight. And Darren Till didn't have gloves on.
I know. It was crazy.
Opponent still did it and still got the double, or still got the single leg.
Listen, we never said Darren's takedown defense was his best weapon, okay? And he's been training for a boxing match. He wasn't ready. He didn't know. He thought that he didn't know the rules. Hey, cut my man some slack. It's tough, man. It was a weird scene for sure. And Darren Till, man, he's been kind of snake bit with luck. He had that amazing run, and then he's had since then some difficulties, and was supposed to be fighting on his Diaz card, I believe, but can travel into the States and or was it actually the Jake Paul card later on in the year. So he's had some visa issues and that sort of thing. So I was happy to see him actually get a chance to compete. And to actually get a chance to get a win in the most bizarre way possible. I don't understand it either. The punch did not look like much, though. And again, I get it, man. Like punches to the back of the head, you never know. There's some real sensitive areas back there. Weird stuff can happen neurologically and physically, which is why it's an area that's outlawed. So I don't want to just say the guy was hamming it up, but it didn't look like much to me. But yeah, bizarre scenes, man. Chaos for Darren Till. But as you said, he gets the win.
Yeah. I don't really know much to talk about into that. It's just something I guess we had to bring up, talking about boxing and MMA guys.
Look, like I said, and Darren Till, man, you think the number of cancellations he had and the issues that he had. And like I said, he was supposed to face Julio Cesar Chavez later this month and couldn't get into the country and all that. So I just feel bad for the guy. And it's just weirdness seems to surround Darren Till regardless of what he does. You know what I mean? But I was just happy to see him actually get a chance to compete because it, man. I mean, if you make the run as a professional fighter, you only get paid when you step in there, right? And if you're not getting an opportunity to compete and you're not having, whether it be through injury or whatever else, you're not getting paid, man. And that's not fun. Everybody needs to make some income. So I was happy for him, but it was bizarre scenes to say the least.
Yeah, it's a kind of a little downtime with the UFC. I'm not say downtime. There's UFC fights the next couple weekends, but we're still 3 weeks away from Leon Edwards, and I'm sorry for forgetting your name, Bilal Muhammad. I'm the closer this gets, the more excited I get for this fight. I really think this is a time for Leon Edwards to really put a stamp on I'm the man. And so I'm excited for that. But before we get to that card, we do have Thug Rose and Tracy Cortez this coming weekend. Now, Tracy Cortez is a late last minute replacement for Maycee Barber. A little quiet on the front of why she got pulled out from this fight. Do you have any intel for us?
Yeah, she talked about it a little bit on social media and gave a pretty extensive explanation, but it really wasn't much of a solution to know what it is. You know, she was basically just saying that, you know, she had hospitalized after her last fight and, you know, she was still training for this one and trying to get ready and just didn't feel right internally. The energy levels weren't there. She just knew something was wrong. And they're just getting all kinds of blood work tests done, hormonal tests done. That she realized it was a horrible regret. She's like, I didn't want to pull out of this fight. This is a massive opportunity, but I just knew as I was training, I was not in a place to be ready for this and to be ready for this type of challenge, right? And there's something physically wrong with me. So she's continuing to train. I guess on the one hand, it's good news, right? Because it wasn't like a knee issue recurring because she's had that.
And that's what I was scared of. I actually brought that up to you. I said, I hope it's not a knee again.
Yeah, you'd hate to see her have to go through all that again. So I guess in that sense, it's kind of a good thing, but I don't know. Like, I feel like it's kind of a bad thing too, because it's like one of these things of like, my body, something isn't working right. She said there was like concerns about her spleen. And I mean, when you start talking about like internal organs that aren't functioning properly, yeah, especially, you know, at her age, she's still young. I think she's still just 26 years old and has all the, you know, seems to really be putting things together and on a roll. And so I don't know. I don't know if I should, you know, if you take it as a positive, they'll like, oh, good, at least it's not the knee, or if it's like until they identify what it is and fix it, it's a little bit scary, right? And it, you know, sometimes it's a reality of mixed martial arts, especially right with you know, these weight cuts. The weight cuts can do weird things to your body, man. So I'm not saying that that's what it is, but you just wonder if that led to it or is factoring into it. So I don't know. I'm knocking on wood because obviously she's had a bright future for a long time. People have been keyed on her from a very young age. She's still very, very young. But it sounds like, you know, just dealing with some overall health issues right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because by far the biggest break of her career, right?
Right.
And, you know, anytime you're going up against not just a former champion, but a former champion named Thug Rose, who is probably, you know, probably the most beloved fighter of that division.
100%.
It's just a main event slot, not in the Apex. This is an arena show in Denver. It's just unfortunate because this really could have been like almost a changing of the guard moment, and now Maycee Barber doesn't get that. So it gives more credence to what the heck is really going on. To be able to give up that opportunity just has more questions than answers then.
Yeah, right. I mean, to as you said, because everything was sitting there. You know, she's got this amazing ranking right now. You win this fight. I mean, look, you know, it looks like we're supposed to do Grasso Shevchenko at the Sphere. There's still hesitation. It hasn't formally announced. You know, you got Manon Fiorot that could step in there as well. But you know, win over Rose and Maycee Barber would be right there behind those two. You know, in the title picture. So you're talking about maybe waiting for a title shot, or at worst, like a guaranteed #1 contender fight. So. And it's like I said, I don't know if it's positive or negative. It's a little bit scary when it's just unidentified and they're still just going through these medical tests. But as you said, it's got to be serious, you know, for her to be willing to step out of an opportunity like this that you feel like you can't push through it. Scary. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm trying to be positive and knock on wood. At just 26 years old, you hate to hear of like, you know, internal organs not working properly.
Yeah, something's wrong, but I don't know what. That we
right.
don't like hearing that.
Ton of antibiotics and hospitalization, and we just don't know, and we're still testing and figuring out. So, yeah, it's still a great fight. It's still a great main event. It's not the one that we thought we were going to get, but yeah, it's just like kind of, you know, putting good energy and vibes out there for Maycee Barber.
Yeah, but jumping in is a fun fighter. Tracy Cortez jumps in. She's benefiting after all of this, 11-0. And this was interesting. And I didn't really realize this. She lost her pro debut and has now rattled off 11 straight victories. Now, is she a finisher? No. She's got 9 decisions of her 11 wins, but she is one of those high octane, in your face, I'm not going to let you breathe fighter. And for me, that is a very exciting fighter.
I completely agree. Yeah, this is a big opportunity for her. So to be willing to step up on short notice, again, because, we're talking about what a big opportunity is. Well, here's Tracy Cortez's opportunity to steal a little bit of that shine. You know what I mean? And as you said, I think that's been the thing that's been holding her back, right? It's just not getting the finish, because everybody likes the highlights, right? You love to see the knockouts. You love to see the submissions. And kind of grinding out decisions isn't necessarily the most exciting. But a win over Rose Namajunas, if she can pull this off either way, would be huge for Tracy Cortez. So this is a big, big opportunity for her for this Saturday in Denver.
Interesting fact. I reffed Tracy Cortez's 4th professional fight.
Look at that.
This was back in 2018, V3 Fights. V3 Fights merged with Cage Fury to now make a bigger expansion. It was here in Memphis, Tennessee. And if my memory serves me correctly, it was a Dana White's looking for a fight filming.
Oh, wow.
Regional card. Remember when him and Dean Thomas and Matt Serra were popping around? Yeah.
I'm looking at that card. Do you remember how she won that night?
It was fast. No, I don't. Probably rear naked choke. I don't know. Is that her only submission victory? It's her only submission victory. I called the stoppage on her only submission victory.
First round rear naked choke victory.
On MMA trivia.
I love it. That is good. Boy, look at this card, by the way, too, man. You and I both love to do this stuff, right? To go back and look at it. But Tracy Cortez won that night, her lone submission. Bobby Moffitt was on there.
Bobby
Soriano.
I do remember that fight because Bobby Moffitt fought a guy from a town in Jackson, Jonathan Jackson, just a fun fighter, and Bobby Moffitt ran through this guy. It was, oh gosh, yeah. Soriano, UFC fighter now.
Yep.
Look at that. Man, Kevin Peace and Paul Kimball. Okay. So Kevin Peace, this was an amateur title fight. I ref that one. Kevin Peace and Paul Kimball. Paul Kimball just fought in LFA. Kevin Peace, we've talked about him on the show, making big waves in CFFC. They fought each other as amateurs on this card.
That's pretty incredible. And then I scrolled down. Look who opened the night. Raheem
Forrest.
Amazing, right? And how about that? Raheem Forrest won that fight because I love this about Raheem. He won that fight to improve his amateur record to 4-5. He had a losing amateur record, and then he comes out and he's 7-2 as a pro and has looked fantastic. So I love guys like that, right? They go out there and get that experience, and they stay with it even if it's not going their way. They learn the lessons that they need to learn, and they turn things around. So that's pretty cool, man. I love those trips down memory lane, looking at the old cards and seeing where people have come. That's why, man, I always say it, but like I mean, obviously I'm biased and I'm proud to be a part of CFFC, but I love, regional developmental MMA, watching the guys get opportunities and start to chase down their dream. It's a real cool thing to watch.
Yeah, it really is, especially when you're like, I remember that guy when.
That's right.
It's kind of like I got to see a band in a bar and then they ended up becoming famous. Like you get to say that about fighters.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, man, I know they're playing stadiums now, but I watched them in front of 7 people at O'Shea's down on the Strip. I
was reffing Bryce Mitchell amateur fights.
That's amazing.
Right?
That's amazing.
Yeah, pretty cool to say. Hey, so now, like I said, we're 3 weeks away from the big one, Edwards and Bilal. Sorry, I forgot your name, Muhammad. But I don't even want to get down into breaking down this card. I don't want, because there's so much time, but I'm really looking forward to this fight. I'm really looking forward to this card. Truth be told, I'm really looking forward to Bobby Green versus Patty Pimblett.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to a lot of this, okay? But the question that I have, right, because I think the bigger fight, not bigger fight, but as big, is the Curtis Blades Tom Aspinall fight. And I'm not looking to break it down right now. I'm not looking to pick a winner. I'm not looking to do anything. But there's still a lot of chatter with Alex Bahia jumping to heavyweight, right? And we said last week about could he call his shot if he decides to go, when both of us said, yeah, probably. Uncle Dana keeps on throwing water on it, but you know what? If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And that one makes dollars and cents. So I believe he eventually will cave to it. The question I have, does Alex Bahia, the chatter of him moving up to heavyweight, has that thrown a lot of water on the just the wave of success and the chatter and just the momentum that Tom Aspinall? Because the more we talk about Alex Bahia, the less we talk about Tom Aspinall. Even Jon Jones is talking about Bahia, not Aspinall.
Yeah, man, it is. I'll be honest with you. I really do think it is, and it's a shame, right? Because Tom Aspinall is incredibly talented. He's a phenomenal fighter. He's great on the mic. He's a good dude. He's got an amazing story. But yeah, Alex Bahia is this shining supernova that is ascended to the top that everybody wants to see fight. So assuming, let's say things just play out the way they do. We're saying, man, maybe Alex could step in on short notice if something happens, and who knows? I mean, it sounds like right now, we were talking about it, everybody's talking about Jon Jones versus Alex Bahia, like how amazing that would be. A lot of people are in the same boat as you and I. But let's say this Stipe fight does happen in November the way it's expected to, and it plays out. Jon Jones gets a win. Let's say Tom Aspinall beats Curtis Blades, so he's still the interim champion, and now you're left with, all right, Jon Jones does say he wants to fight again. He felt so good in there against Stipe. He wants to fight one more time. And we got two options on the table. Do we unify the titles with Tom Aspinall, or does he face Alex Bahia, the guy that's going for 3-division history, moving up? I mean, unless there's something super spectacular that happens in Manchester, which I think Tom Aspinall has got to hope for. And I think and Tom's a smart guy, a very smart guy that gets the business and understands how to promote and understands how to make the case. But he's going to have to make his case, because I just feel like the fans would clamor for Alex Bahia right now against Jon Jones. And that would mean that Tom Aspinall would have to take a back seat.
That is wild to say from a guy a year ago was fighting at middleweight. A year and a little bit of change ago was fighting at middleweight. Now we're saying he can potentially knock out Aspinall to be the number one contender in the fans' eyes for the heavyweight world title, which is just crazy to say out loud. But with all that being said, I agree with you 120%. That is, what the people are going to want. And I venture to say there's nothing Aspinall can do. I think Aspinall is the more proven, the better, I think legitimately the one to get the shot at Jon Jones. I don't think that's up for debate at all. I don't think, maybe him having a Jorge Masvidal, Ben Askren moment. Short of that, anything. I don't think there's any way, because Alex is such a global superstar now. I don't see any scenario that, Aspinall is going to be the one that people, want to see fight Jon Jones.
I think you said it right. I mean, it's going to have to be something spectacular, like you said, like a Masvidal Askren moment where everybody just, it captures everybody's attention, because you're right, and it's a shame. I mean, if he goes out there and grinds out a decision over Curtis Blades, or suffers any trouble whatsoever against Curtis Blades and pulls out a victory, after having to, walk through the fire, so to speak, or it's going to have to be something out of this world. And even then, I don't know. And then not only is it going to have to be something out of this world, but then he's going to have to get on the mic and he's going to have a speech that's out of this world as well, that puts Jon Jones on there. That's it. That's a lot of pressure, man. I mean, to be able to do all that, it's going to be so hard. He's going to have a spectacular victory. And I hate to say this, but we're talking about the financial side of things, right? And the popularity. As far as
we're talking about fans.
That's it. If we're just saying, hey, on paper, who deserves to fight Jon Jones? And then again, now we're assuming Jon Jones beats Stipe, but maybe let's just say on paper, who deserves to fight for the heavyweight title? it's Tom Aspinall all day. He's already the interim heavyweight champion. He's been asking for Jon Jones since basically he came into the UFC, before Jon Jones had any idea who he was. And he was always very respectful. He's like, I want to fight that guy one day, nothing disrespectful. I believe I'm good enough to beat him, and I want to test myself against the greatest of all time. So on paper, if Tom Aspinall wins, regardless of how he wins, he deserves to be the guy. But we talked about it earlier. This is a sport about popularity. This is a sport about selling pay-per-views. And in much the same way that we said, look, there is a way for Nate Diaz to fight Leon Edwards again. There is absolutely a way for Alex Pereira to jump the line, skip ahead of everybody, including the reigning, defending interim heavyweight champion, and face it. Because let's say Jon wins in Madison Square Garden in November. I would venture to say if he doesn't retire and he says he wants to do one more, he's not a guy that typically turns around really fast. I don't know if he would make an exception this time, or does he maybe go, well, maybe next July, International Fight Week. Why don't you put Jon Jones at the top of International Fight Week? And now you got to make a decision. Jon Jones versus Aspinall, Jon Jones against Pereira. It's just the popularity, the sales, the attention. It's going to be the superstar, right? It's going to be the superstar.
I love that scenario. I think it's plausible.
Yeah.
Damn near probable. Okay. So would it be a scenario where then we have a number one contender fight because there's so much time? And would that make any sense to Alex Pereira and or Tom Aspinall? Or do you just hope you win the sweepstakes?
It's so crazy, right? I mean, Aspinall's already out there defending his interim title, right? So he got to defend this thing twice and stay busy. I mean, but Aspinall's got to get on that mic and be like, Jon Jones, stop running. You want to have this fight in Madison Square Garden, fine. But then you got to come see me. Don't talk to me about fighting a Brazilian middleweight. You come and see me, the best heavyweight on the planet. You know what I mean? Like he's got to sell it. Because if not, if Jon Jones...
He may get Jones for even in his home country for talking ish about Alex Pereira.
They'd be like, no, we want to see. Hey, all us Brits want to see Alex too, man. What are you talking about? Oh man, there's so many ways.
Well, let me ask you this question.
Maybe you flip it like this. You say, hey, Jon Jones comes here, or maybe you say, hey, I hear about Alex Pereira moving up to heavyweight. This guy over here has only fought once. Maybe you try to steal that fight. Although we talked about this. I don't think Alex is coming up to fight for an interim title. He wants to fight for the undisputed title.
Which convoluted my question even more. Do these guys wait to win the Jon Jones sweepstakes, or would we have their hand forced in making a number one contender fight there? Because and this is why I say this, Jon Jones is not turning around fast. He's not. So. Okay. No. So then are you going to let a superstar like Alex Pereira sit on the sidelines for a year at that point to get to Jon Jones? And I don't think from a dollars and cents perspective, you're going to allow that to happen.
No, you're not. You're definitely not going to have it. I mean, maybe you do the Magomed and Goliath fight in the meantime, although we always said, that's not going to sell. But again, and Pereira, right, he's kind of said too, because you saw he was tweeting in social media the other day about boxing maybe, and he even said, like, I'm 37, I don't know I can make a career out of it. Like, he realizes his age. He got a late start in MMA, so this rise that he has been meteoric and has been amazing, but even he realizes, I can't stick around and do this forever. So does he want to sit out and wait a year? So this is a guy that steps in on short notice, right? This is a guy that takes headlining title fights on 2 weeks, so he doesn't want to sit out for a year, unless the UFC just came with a huge bag, right? And said, look, it's going to be the biggest paycheck you can ever dream of. Sit and wait, I promise. Deal. Exactly. Like, come on, man. We're gonna make this worth your while. But I don't think you'd want to sit out, man. I think you want. So yeah, I think you'd. Geez, there you go. And so then maybe it would be worth it to fight for the interim title. And then there's so many scenarios. It's going to be interesting.
Huge, but let's be honest, that would be a huge end of the year fight.
Oh, be amazing.
Aspinall, Alex Pereira. But I don't know. I just don't see. Well, I do see, but it's a very risky fight for both of them. You're going to lose everything if you lose that fight. You lose everything.
That would be a great end of year fight, right? Like, because it makes sense, right? Because Jon Jones, not only is he not going to turn around fast, but Jon Jones might not even commit to what he's going to do. You know what I mean? It might be like, I don't know, man. This took a lot out of me. And again, Stipe can ruin all this as well. So that could clear the table. I mean, that might, weird as it might sound, that might clear the deck for everybody. It's just like, hey, if Stipe wins, he's not fighting again. Like, he's going to hang it up and retire, and he's done. And that might clear the deck for saying, all right, well, now the title's empty. And so
I love Stipe. He is my favorite fighter in the UFC for all the reasons I've said before. There's one way he beats Jon Jones, and that is by getting lucky.
I mean, you hate to say it about a guy that caliber, that quality, those accomplishments, but
3+ years off now.
It's a long time to come in and face the GOAT, man. It's a long time. But if it happened, that would clear the deck for everybody. If Stipe wins, then I think right away you go Alex Bejeda, Tom Aspinall, for the vacant heavyweight title, undisputed. Or maybe you just say that Aspinall is the undisputed champ since he was interim. You just grant him undisputed status. But either way, it's an undisputed title. Maybe you do that. But I agree. Most likely, I think most intelligent fans are picking Jon Jones in this matchup. So then you got to say, well, now we got to wait and see what Jon Jones wants to do. And that's why maybe at that point, then it's on Aspinall again, like I said, to kind of take the bull by the horns and say, hey, me and Alex Bejeda, we don't even know what Jon Jones is going to do, man. Jon Jones is sitting out trying to decide whether he wants to come fight. So me and you, buddy, let's go at this. And then, if Jon Jones does come around, he can see who the dust settles and who's here, and we'll do that in July, International Fight Week. That might be the way it plays out. Yeah.
I like that option, because Dana's still talking about Alex needing to clear out the division, but nobody want to see that.
Look,
history. We want to see history.
That's it.
We love when great fighters do great things. We love when great athletes do great things. Allow Alex Bejeda the opportunity to do something great and historic.
That would be amazing. That would be absolutely amazing. I mean, look, because on paper, much as we said earlier, on paper, Tom Aspinall deserves Jon Jones. On paper, Magomed Ankalaev deserves Alex Bejeda. But guess what? It's about making paper, not what's on paper. You know what I'm saying?
That's why last week, go back and touch on why that fight won't happen. Well, we talked about it a lot. All right. Hey, before we get out of here, Aljo calls out Diego Lopes for the Sphere. I love the call out. I think it's a great, interesting matchup. One, does it have potential? Aljo being the former title challenger or the former champion, and Lopes coming in at ranked 11? I mean,
yeah,
that's a huge backstep for Aljo, but he knows the shine that Diego Lopes has. So I think that's where he's going. But do we have a Sphere card yet? When are we going to have a Sphere card? What's the rumors? What's the haps? You know everything, John.
Yeah, well, it's got to be coming pretty soon, right? I mean, obviously that show is about 2 months away, and the UFC, Dana White said after International Fight Week he was taking a little vacation. He's like, and I know a lot of people took vacation because it was a week off for the UFC. It was around the 4th of July. They're gearing up for the second half. So I don't think a lot got done in the last week, to be honest with you. I think everybody took a minute to recharge their batteries, but they're going to have to make those announcements pretty soon. It looks like Alexa Grasso, we know Alexa Grasso's there. She says, I'm fighting that date. It'll either be Valentina Shevchenko or it'll be Manon Fiorot. They figure it out, but I'm defending my title on that date.
Shevchenko. They're doing the Ultimate Fighter.
I agree, but Shevchenko said she didn't want to fight at Noche UFC because she felt like it gave Alexa Grasso a home field advantage last time, which I was a little bit surprised to hear her say that. And I'd be really surprised if she sticks to her guns and says, I'm passing on this title opportunity because I don't want to fight at a Mexican themed event, being this one-off historic card. I understand the posturing maybe, but knowing that it's going to be on that date, I don't see why you'd give a title shot. So I would expect some announcements forthcoming very soon that, maybe we start getting them this week. We'll see as everybody is kind of getting back to the office. But listen, I do love this call out from Aljamain Sterling as well, man. And I love it because, you said it's kind of not kind of a step back. It is a step back, right? Diego Lopes, as exciting as he is.
About 10 ranking spots back.
100%. Diego Lopes has not accomplished what Aljamain Sterling has in mixed martial arts, but you touched on it. This is Aljamain getting the business as well, right? And saying, okay, hold on. That's the dude with all the shine right now. That's the dude that everybody is saying, the guy. Let me take that guy. You know what I mean? The guy that's willing to step up on short notice and take these challenges and all those things. Let me take that guy. And oh, by the way, stylistically could be a lot of fun because the grappling exchanges between those two could be absolutely incredible. So I like this call out from Aljamain Sterling. He wants to be on this historic event, and here's a way to be on it. Diego Lopes has already been promised a spot on that card. Of course, he's Brazilian born, but he trains in Mexico. So, he gets the pass on that one. And obviously for stepping up on short notice, he gets. So I like the call out. Whether or not it happens, I don't know, but I like it. And I like it from Aljamain's
You think it happens?
Right? I kind of think it do. Like when I heard it, I'm like,
hold on.
That does make sense.
Did you watch the Rocco series?
I did watch the Rocco series.
Of course you did. You gave me the sneak peek. Of course you did. I just don't think the UFC is a fan of Aljo. I don't think they'd be like, you know what, that's the guy that we are gonna, push the moon back. So why in the world would they put Aljo against their rising superstar?
Because their rising superstar can beat a former champion. I do think you're right. I love the way you said that, but I think it almost plays in Aljamain's favor in this one, right? Like obviously, we've seen the series, we've heard some interviews. They have not always been the biggest fans of Aljamain Sterling. So that's why I feel like Aljamain's kind of playing the game here, right? Like, oh, well, here you are. You're looking for bodies for your new rising star to beat. I'll be that guy. How about you put me in there? Let him beat a former champ. Because how big would that look for Diego Lopes? Like, hold on, man. I'm taking fights on short notices. I'm dispatching a former champions. Like, let's go. What else do you need me to do? So I think, honestly, they would look at this as a favor to Diego Lopes to give him a signature, victory over a former champion, more so than they would look at it as like, oh yeah, well, Aljo wants to be on this card. We owe that guy everything. Whatever you want, buddy. Let's go, Funk Master. So I think that's why I think this is actually kind of a brilliant call out by Aljamain Sterling, because if he's like, just give me anybody, I want to be on that Sphere card. They're like, yeah, no, all right, we got stuff going on, right? We already got a card. We'll get to you later. Take a seat. We got some Apex shows coming up. We might need you or something like that, right? But instead, he says, okay, that's the darling right now. Give me the darling. So that's why I think this was actually kind of a brilliant play by Aljamain. And look, I mean, this will be a big step up in level for Diego Lopes, right? So, that's what we thought we were going to maybe see against Brian Ortega. And that's why I think a lot of people were teetering on like, okay, wait a minute. Diego's incredible, but Ortega's been there. He's fought all the best. Like, is he really that level yet? I don't know. That's intriguing. And I think this would kind of replicate that where you're like, okay, Diego's the guy, but this is Aljamain. I know you might not like him. I know you may not like his personality, but look at the victories that he has. Look at the signature wins that he has. Look at, former champ. Anytime you can beat a former champ. And it's not like Aljamain Sterling is a former champ that's like 10 years removed from his title reign and is washed up or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you don't see that. I know this is a guy that's still very much in his prime, right? So I could be wrong, but this felt like a brilliant call out to me for Aljamain Sterling.
Yep. All right. We're about ready to head out of here. But did you see O'Malley making the video of him defending Merab's shots?
Amazing. These two guys. Can we give both these guys credit on social media? They're both having fun, man. They are both having a great time putting this thing together.
Yeah, it made me laugh. It made me laugh. So if you haven't seen it, go look it up. O'Malley's. Just Twitter it or Google it or whatever. I mean, you will find it. It was everywhere. So with that being said, John, what do you got going on this weekend?
Not much. I'll be in town. Obviously, the UFC's in Denver this week, so I'm going to be in town. My family's actually heading out of town to go visit their family, so I'm in charge of everything. Rolling solo for a little while around here, trying to just stay cool and stay indoors and stay out of this 120-degree heat. How about you? Anything big?
No.
No? Not coming out for Summer League?
Nope. Heck no. I'm in the off-season mode. But I'm just going to be taking care of my tribe, man. I got so many of these damn kids now. So
you got a whole crew there, man.
I do, man. I do. You're either with us or against us. I got back.
I love it.
Well, with that being said, for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.